that music stand closer to me. You never know when you need that. Well, thank you so much for that kind introduction, Deborah. I very much appreciate it. And thank you as well to the University District and the Creative District for sponsoring this group of doc talks. I mean, that's exciting to me. An opportunity to talk about some of my favorite topics, which include the College of Performing and Visual Arts and our connections with the community. I have to tell you, when I was thinking about taking this job in 2013, one of the reasons why I took the job was, even at that time, I sensed very strong connections with the community, and that was very important to me. It's one of the reasons why I took the job, but it's also, I think, a very important aspect of any artistic creation on the Hill, if you will, that we need to permeate our communities with art for a lot of reasons that we'll start to talk about. Some are just because of a quality of life issue, which I'm sure you've already heard about. But others are actually, they're finding with more and more research that the arts really can help traditional STEM disciplines be more creative and be more problem solving in their manner. And so we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. I am a doctor. Unlike the cancer doctor, Dr. George, who talked last week, I cannot cure you if you are sick. I have 3 degrees in the most practical of disciplines, classical guitar. Classical guitar. So how did that happen? I was in upstate New York where I was born, and I got the first degree in classical guitar and also music education. And this nagging little voice in my head said, what happens if you get another degree and try to pursue this artistic career and dream that you have of being the best guitarist that you can? So I packed my 1975 Ford Gran Torino with a leaky muffler exhaust and traveled from Rochester, New York down to Tallahassee, Florida, where I got a master's in classical guitar performance. And then I was not done. I had to get the doctorate in classical guitar performance. And the reason why I say all that to you is for a point, not just to tell you a little bit about my story, but to tell you that I use those skills that I learned as a classical guitarist, those impractical skills, every single day on my job. I use the discipline that I learned of sitting by yourself for 6 hours a day and figuring out timelines, figuring out due dates. It's just like preparing for a big concert, preparing for this talk. Those are the soft skills, the ability to collaborate, which is huge in today's workplace. If you play in a string quartet or if you play guitar in a string quartet, you learn the value of collaborating and give and take, believe me. So a lot of those soft skills have really helped me along the way. So without further ado, I think we'll start the slideshow. Thank you, Adam. So this presentation is divided into 4 rough parts. Kind of like a sonata or a symphony, has 4 movements. And like a sonata or a symphony that has 4 movements, not to force the analogy too much, I'll pause at the end of each of the chunks of information that we'll talk about, and I'll see if there's any questions. Sue Ann Schutz assures me there will be questions, so I'm getting ready mentally and physically. So about our college, we are a college of fine arts. We have 1,233 majors in our college. That number is up 200 majors over the last 5 years. Unlike many colleges of fine arts across the country, ours is flourishing for a variety of reasons that we'll talk about. We're also very proud of the fact that we have some of the best retention rates and graduation rates at UNC. And indeed among many campuses around Colorado, where we are proud of the fact that we take the mentorship and the graduation of our students very seriously. We have 176 minors. Those folks are from across the campus that can pursue a minor in the arts. 108.5 faculty and staff, and over 450 arts events presented each year. That 450 number, to give you some context, was 300 when I first came here. And so one of my goals was to really, as I mentioned, permeate the community with the arts. So that 150 extras are things like the Day of Music, other things that we'll talk about as we go through the presentation. We offer comprehensive pre-professional degrees from the bachelor through the doctorate in a variety of disciplines. One of the reasons why we've been able to grow when many other colleges have not across the country is we've offered some innovative new curricular designs which have attracted a whole different kind of student that used to come to our arts programs. So the folk and bluegrass program is one of my favorites. If you want to major in fiddle or banjolin or string bass, UNC is one of the few places, as a matter of fact, the only public institution in the country where you can get a degree in folk and bluegrass music and study with some of the world's best musicians, because our faculty are professional touring musicians in the folk and bluegrass world. The vocal jazz program was added to our already strong jazz program and has attracted students from all over the country. Our dance education MA is a fascinating degree because it's a hybrid degree. What does that mean? It means that these are full-time teachers that are teaching dance across the country, and they're interested in getting a master's degree in dance. So they can't quit their full-time jobs, of course, to go and pursue a dance master's. So they take the coursework online in the spring and fall and meet on the UNC campus during the summer to do the movement part of the dance degree. Incredibly popular. It's exploded in terms of its popularity across the country. Fascinating. And the Arts Entrepreneurship Certificate is something we'll talk about in greater length a little bit further in the presentation. That's something we started 2 or 3 years ago, and my favorite definition of arts entrepreneurship is creating a career for yourself that doesn't currently exist. And so we talk a lot about our students about the fact that if you're replicating something in the arts, it's not going to be a workable model in the 21st century where you have to create new ideas, new innovations, new synergies among programs, and even among music, theater, and art disciplines. A couple of bragging points. 26 alums from our theater program have appeared in 76 Broadway productions. To give you a sense of context, nobody else in the country has that kind of record for a Bachelor of Arts in Theater and Musical Theater. Nobody. As I talk to people in the theater world, they're thrilled if they have 1 or 2 of their alums that make the Broadway stage. That's an incredible statistic. Our Jazz Studies program has received over 150 Downbeat Awards. That's another incredible statistic. To put that in context, the Downbeat Awards are the most competitive collegiate jazz awards across the country. And it's a huge coup for a program to win 1 or 2 in a year. We win 5 to 10 every year in the different categories. And over 50% of the people teaching arts in Colorado came from UNC and our arts programs, and we're very proud of that stat as well. So, the School of Art and Design, we're organized into 3 main schools, and I'll go alphabetically. School of Art and Design is right in front of you, and then we're going to talk about the School of Music and the School of Theater, Arts, and Dance. So I focused on the gallery events because those are the events that primarily draw the community to us. We've expanded our artist talks and visiting artists, and the Artist Help Desk has turned out to be incredibly popular. Now, Pam Campanero is a great galleries director, and she's got a lot of vision and ideas, so the Help Desk is open to anybody in the community that is interested in furthering their career in the arts. And Pam Campanero basically provides open office hours where these students or people from the community can talk to Pam about career development and talk about that in any way that they so choose. It's been incredibly popular. I see students and community members participating. And I'm a little short. Okay. We've had over 4,500 folks at our exhibits over the last year. That number's almost doubled over the last 5 years. The School of Music, we present over 230 musical events. We have a lot of chamber music opportunities, curricular concerts. We also produce the collaborative UNC Greeley Jazz Festival. To provide some context with that, that is one of the most popular jazz festivals in the country. It brings 4,000 to 5,000 people to downtown Greeley every year. And we had groups 2 years ago from Germany and last year from Thailand, traveled all the way to Thailand, from Thailand. That is a huge, wonderful, cooperative, collaborative partnership because of those 4,000 or 5,000 people stay in our hotels, they eat at our restaurants, they walk around downtown Greeley, they hang out at the UCCC. It's just a great collaborative effort, and that will continue. The Open Space Festival is our new music festival, and that also is a wonderful event. School of Theater, Arts, and Dance, we do 48, that's an incredible number, main stage productions, and 35 performances in Little Theater of the Rockies this past summer. Over 4,700 attendees for Little Theater. A little trivia, Little Theater of the Rockies is the oldest standing summer stock theater program west of the Mississippi, the oldest, the one with the most traditions. It was started in 1937. Just imagine that. Greeley in 1937, very small town in the middle of a depression, and they decide that theater is so important that they will start a summer stock theater that's gone to this day. That's a pretty amazing thing to think about. That's Brianna Folk, one of our recent alums, doing Simply Simone in LTR last summer. She was smashing. It's a one-woman show, and she was great. Amazing voice. So, that's our first symphonic interlude. That's the overview of the college. Does anybody have any questions? Becky.
How long has the PBA college been a part of UNC? Any idea?
Yeah, the college was formed with distinct schools as part of Charting the Future 15 years ago. Before then, there was a large College of Arts and Sciences, and we were part of that. So it was part of Charting the Future, to the best of my knowledge, right? Yeah. Is that correct? 1977. Oh, 1977 for the college? Okay, I stand corrected. Yes. Oh, summer stock theater? Yeah, it's called summer stock or repertory theater. That's a great question. And so I didn't know the answer to that when I first started my job. So it's a good question. And I asked it my first year here. So summer repertory theater or stock theater is when you have a stock number of actors and actresses that act in a variety of productions. We usually do 4 to 5. And they rotate. And so that's the two pieces that I didn't understand when I first came. So a relatively small number of actors doing different roles, sometimes several over the course of a summer. So it's great training for our students, many who intern with Little Theater of the Rockies. And then they rotate, so the audience, if they can't see it on a Friday night this weekend because they're in the mountains, they can see it on a Thursday night in 2 weeks. So yeah, each actor auditions for different roles, right? It's a very competitive selection process. Yeah, great question. Any other question? Yes, Sue?
A little bit about where the students come from, the diversity of students that would enroll at UNC in any given year.
That's in the college. In the performing and visual arts, right. That's a great question. And it's very different depending on the 3 schools. So our school, I'll go alphabetically, our School of Art and Design historically has drawn primarily from the Front Range. And UNC has 38%, I think, of their freshman population this year is first-generation college students. And that population very closely mirrors our art and design student population. So we are most closely aligned with the rest of UNC when it comes to that student population. In the School of Music, we draw from all over the world. We've gained about 125 students over the last couple of years, and the great majority of them tend to be international students. We've reached 5 articulation agreements with the 5 leading music universities in Thailand, and I think we now have 33 Thai students at the university. So the School of Music really enjoys an international reach. The School of Theater Arts and Dance is primarily a national pool. But for example, for the highly competitive musical theater program, where we take 25 a year, we have 1,000 people audition for those slots. And most of those auditions happened as what they call unified auditions that happen at certain spots across the country. So our faculty will travel to those spots, and you literally get 2 minutes in front of an entire faculty panel to show your stuff. Talk about pressure. Yeah. Yes?
I remember growing up in this neighborhood back in the 60s and 70s, and
Yeah.
even then, I think there was some connection with Thailand and the
Yes.
music school.
Yes.
What is the history of that long-running, collaboration?
Sure. The most clear logical connection is one of our UNC alums in our doctoral programs, Sugri Cheransuk is his name, achieved a doctorate here at UNC. It may have been even in the mid-60s, and then went on to become dean of the most illustrious music school in Thailand. Chulalongkorn is the official Thai name. Yeah, and so he was dean of that university until last year. I mean, an incredibly long tenure, and very interested in the quality of UNC arts education, sending students, sending faculty. So there's been an informal organization with him and his university, but we just signed formal reciprocity agreements 2 years ago. I was the signer. I went to Thailand. It was really fun. Really fun. Yeah, great questions. Any others before we continue? So why train artists for the 21st century? That's a great question. First of all, many of you know about STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, which has been kind of the buzz acronym for the last 15 years or so. What they're finding in many circles is that STEM by itself has limitations, and what STEM really needs is STEAM. So you add the arts to STEM. This was not my creation. This is a national movement and has been recognized by the federal government. It's legit. It's legit. Because they're finding, more and more research is finding that the soft skills, the creativity, the team building, the collaboration that I've talked about with my own degree, serve those straighter disciplines very, very well, and they help coalesce the work experience much more effectively and much more efficiently. So the objectives of the STEAM movement are to encourage integration of art and design into K-20 education, and to influence employers to hire artists and designers. And that's happening more and more often. Or across the country, science, technology, engineering, math are starting to incorporate more of the creative arts into their curriculum as well. So there's lots of interesting ideas happening there, and we're just at the beginning of that revolution. Second, like I've talked about already a couple of times, the need for soft skills. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, this statistic blew me away when I was getting ready for this. 10 to 15 times. That's how much the average college student will change their career over the course of their life. 10 to 15 times. That's the labor stat. And so it is what people are calling the gig economy, where you go from gig to gig, engagement to engagement, without that long-term career trajectory that most of us are very used to. And so what universities are finding is that it's really useless, for example, to train somebody in a software package, because that software package will be obsolete in 2 years, right? What it's really useful to train university students to do is to be creative in their thinking, to collaborate, to use their critical thinking skills, teamwork, and creating connections. That's where the real value of the arts comes in, because that's all just built in to the arts. I love this quote. Among the 8 most important qualities of Google's top employees, STEM expertise comes in dead last. The 7 top characteristics of success at Google, of all places, are soft skills, being a good coach, communicating, listening, possessing insights into others, having empathy toward and being supportive of one's colleagues, being a good critical thinker and problem solver, and being able to make connections across complex ideas, all of which the arts does in spades. Isn't that interesting? It's really fascinating. All right, next slide. 3, the Colorado Creative Industries. So, of course, that's the entity, the state entity that creates creative districts and designates creative districts. They were here in May, right, Becky? For the first time ever, the Colorado Creative Industries has a symposium or a meeting. I call them symposiums because I'm a doc, but they're actually just meetings of state creative folks from across the state, and they were blown away coming to Greeley. I think it's safe to say I spent a day or two with a number of people that had no idea about the vibrant art scene that was happening in Greeley, had no idea what a great community Greeley was, how friendly, how personable, how warm and welcoming. And I have to tell you, I talked to a couple of other folks who lived in academic communities in Colorado, and I was explaining to them some of the partnerships that we have with the city of Greeley, and they're like, oh, we don't do that. Oh, we don't do that. Oh, we don't do that either, you know? So we all have it good in Greeley when it comes to this easy collaborative spirit with the city of Greeley. So this stat blew me away. This was from the CCI website. According to the Arts and Cultural Production Satellite account, Colorado's art industries, and granted they use a big umbrella for art industries, I'll grant them that, contributes $13.7 billion to the state economy. That's above mining, and that's above transportation in our state. Employ over 100,000 people, and we exceed the national average by a lot in several areas, including publishing, including music publishing, arts-related computer design systems, so that's graphic design, creative graphic design work, and performing arts presenters. Isn't that incredible? So there's another good reason why to train people in the arts for the 21st century. Colorado is a real leader in the arts, and to train people who are going to be effective creators as well as drive our economy further, we need to create good artists. All right, 4, bragging rights, alumni success. I've already mentioned to you our graduation and retention rates for our current students, and we have hundreds of, not thousands of alumni actively working in their profession right now. I just picked 4 of my favorites. Angela Paris, how many saw La La Land? So the very first scene, there's a traffic jam on the LA freeway, and there's a jazz pianist who sings a lovely solo song. Art grad, art grad, art grad. Angela Paris graduated from our jazz program and is making her way as a jazz vocalist in LA. Nela Pekarek is a vocalist and cellist for the Lumineers. You know the Lumineers? Right. You know a song? Can you sing a song? Okay. I belong to you, you belong to me. Dun, dun, dee, that's the Lumineers. Nelia graduated with a music degree in cello and also did a lot of musical theater while she was here. And she graduated 5 years ago, I think, and joined this no-name band called the Lumineers, and the rest is history. Mackie Saturday is probably one of the best-known graphic designers in the country, works out of Brooklyn, graduated from our art and design program. And Andy Kelso is the original cast of Kinky Boots. Anybody ever seen Kinky Boots on Broadway? Kinky Boots is the Cyndi Lauper musical. It's just pure fun and pure delight. Andy Kelso graduated from our program about 15 years or so ago and had a run of almost 10 years in Kinky Boots as the lead. So, yeah. And to even put the cherry on top, Andy graduated as a theater major, not a musical theater major, and that's a musical theater piece. There's a lot of singing. He learned the singing after he graduated, he told me. So, yeah. So we're very proud of what we do, and we're very proud to say that we do it really well. Next. All right, so there's a next pause. Any questions? Sue.
How familiar is our school district with those statistics? Because arts are always under scrutiny in terms of inclusion in the curriculum.
Yes.
So we can, we don't need to have that.
Yes.
We'll focus on instead,
Yeah.
which we know is not the best thing to do with those statistics.
Yeah, it's a struggle because we're really fighting against cultural preconceptions and frankly, misconceptions with those statistics. So I talk to anybody who's willing to listen, and I talk to them about these facts. These are facts. U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics doesn't lie. Yeah. So how? This is one of the fun parts. So we talked about why it's important to train artists. Now we're talking about how we do it at UNC. Our college is evolving to address the demands of being an artist in the 21st century, and it's really walking a very fine line as I thought about preparing this presentation, because you have to do a lot of your curriculum that talks about the traditions of art, so that the artists of the 21st century know where their art comes from and can have great context. But yet at the same time, you have to be innovative enough so that you're pushing the boundaries and they're challenging them in different ways. So we'll talk about how we do that right now. By the way, that's a picture of our lovely musical theater students backstage getting ready for a performance at the UCCC. What a bright bunch of shiny faces. Okay, so arts entrepreneurship, I touched upon that. We developed the certificate in arts entrepreneurship in 2014, I think, is when it started. It's a certificate, and to date, 121 of our students have signed up for the certificate. 34 have achieved the certificate. Last year was the first year that our first graduating class graduated with that certificate, so those numbers will increase. As I said, the certificate trains our students to imagine careers for themselves that don't currently exist. And how they do that is through very pragmatic visioning, coursework that also focuses on marketing, developing business plans, practical business plans, developing your own website, because if you're a starving artist just starting out on your career, and that's what happens when you first start, you can't afford a web designer, you have to do it yourself. So those really pragmatic skills that artists need to be successful is what the arts certificate, arts entrepreneurship certificate focuses on. We have a student arts salon, which finishes out as a kind of a capstone for that group. It's in March every year down at Zoe's, and you're welcome to attend. It's March 19th, I believe, this year. Over 200 people from the community came last year. It was a hoot. It was really fun. And very interesting, as you can imagine, the program was a blending of a lot of different unusual art forms. There was aerial ballet as one of the things that happened down at Zoe's. You know, go down there and check out the aerial ballet if you don't know what that is. The PVA Arts Innovation Award is something that we started 3 years ago. That's a co-curricular award, so it's not attached to any degree. So we encourage any students from first-year freshman to last-year doctoral student that has a great creative idea to apply for this award. It's a $3,500 cash gift that they can use to further their career in any way that they choose. And so we've gotten all sorts of applications, as you can imagine. We average about 15 to 20 a year. including original screenplays with original music, all the way to a new gaming device and system from one of our art and design students last year, who was a finalist, all the way to new and unusual compositions. Mike Conrad, the gentleman who's conducting there, won 2 years ago with his All Angles Orchestra. His All Angles Orchestra is a jazz band with classical instruments added into it. So it's got a string quartet, a cello, viola, 2 violins, and also some woodwinds. And then, because that genre had never been created before, he wrote all the music. He wrote all the scores. And he used that money for seed money to start their first CD and to do a small regional tour, and they're still going great guns. So the Innovation Award is designed to be kind of seed thought, seed money to inspire people to take that next step. All right, and yeah, that's fine. Student art and design. So now we're going to go through each of the schools and talk about some different examples. You may recognize this. This is one of my favorites besides the chocolate, which I suspected you might talk about. So Alice Mizrachi is a noted muralist. She's nationally renowned. She lives in Brooklyn, New York, and she came, I think it was 2 years ago, to work with some of our advanced art and design students to draw this mural on the side of the Railroad Museum. So it was a great exercise for our students to get permission from the city, to talk to the city planning folks, to make sure that it complemented what was there already. So it was a great instructional moment, a great teaching moment for our students. They helped with the design of the mural. And then the most interesting part for me was Alice came in early spring in Colorado, where you never quite know what the weather's going to do. And the weather was miserable for 3 days when she was here. So our students learned a lot about timelines, getting things done under less than ideal conditions, and they finished it beautifully, and it's a lovely addition. Yes?
So I'm the director of the museum.
Oh!
I love this museum. They also brought the students to the museum to learn what we do, and they also did a whole day on the history of Greeley.
Yep.
And so that hair is Greeley's water story.
Oh,
And the stairway
that's so cool.
is the Utopian Society, and the rainbow represents our agriculture.
I had no idea.
The students came up with all of these concepts, and I got to work with them. Here I am, a model trained museum director, and I got to do this huge art project with the students, and it was really fun.
That's awesome.
So it was a really cool collaboration.
Really cool collaboration. Our students are still talking about it too. So it's really meaningful. Yeah, so a successful thing. You can drive by sometime when it's not quite as dark as it is right now. Okay. The School of Music, this is what we were talking about just before we started. The Day of Music has taken Greeley by storm. If you're not familiar with the Day of Music, it was the idea of Mike Alexander, our director of the School of Music, 3 years ago, to cancel classes, which never happens at a university, within the music school, and to basically tell the 557 music students to go out and play music and share your art with the Greeley community. They're in charge of making arrangements, right, Adam? A number of groups played here at the Atlas Theater. They're in charge of making the arrangements. If there's a contract to be negotiated of some sort, they're in charge of doing that. They're in charge of promoting their event and trying to get an audience here. And it's a great wake-up moment for people who get stuck for 14 hours a day practicing violin in a practice room, that's only where it begins, that you have to use your art to communicate, to relate, to make connections. And so we had 100 musical performances last Friday, October 5th. My absolute favorite, as I went around town, I was near the president's office at 8:30 in the morning on that Friday in a meeting, and I heard 8 sousaphones just outside the door. Sousaphones, do you know what sousaphones are? Sousaphones are like big, ugly tubas, marching band instruments. And so they were serenading the president. And they started with Andy Griffith's song, dun 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 dun, and they actually snapped while they played. They were fingering one and playing the other. And then they finished with the Oompa Loompa song, from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Oompa, loompa. And they actually did a little choreography. Our president loved it. And and to tell you the truth, we are in a darkened boardroom talking in great serious tones about academic things, and you hear that music and it just lightens up. Everybody around the table was smiling, their mood was lifting, we were in a difficult conversation, we came back and it was like there was air blown into the room and we resolved our problems. It was really an interesting moment. So that's the Brazilian Drum Ensemble. They always march from here to there. The first time it was from Foundation Hall to campus. I think it was from the UC to the music building. And by the end of their long march, the president was dancing back behind them as they were doing their Brazilian cadences. So that's how we're engaging the community with our School of Music and our School of Theater, Arts, and Dance. We have initiated a wonderful collaboration with the Greeley Philharmonic Orchestra. Of course, the Greeley Philharmonic Orchestra is also one of the longest running orchestras west of the Mississippi. And we collaborated on West Side Story. How many of you saw West Side Story 2 years ago? Thank you, Jim. Right? Sue? And we had 3 productions and sold out theaters 3 nights in a row for the Greeley Philharmonic and West Side Story. It was a remarkable collaboration, and it was so popular we're doing it again with Beauty and the Beast in the spring, so we invite you to come to that. And to tell you the truth, I'll just be very honest and selfish, it was great for our students. Here's why it was great, is that up on the hill, you have this relatively luxurious production schedule if you're a theater major. I say relatively luxurious, and that you have multiple times to try to get it right. You have multiple times to rehearse. You have mentors, you have professors, you have your fellow students that are helping you. You go down to the UCCC, right, Jason? Ka-choo! There goes the whip, You've got 2 rehearsals. Yes, you've got 2 rehearsals with a paid orchestra, and they start at 8 and they end at 10, and you'd better be ready to sing, and you'd better be ready to get it right the first time. And it was great training for our students, so we're very much looking forward to being there again. Okay, next. So Campus Commons, one of the favorite things that I've been talking about lately. I have to share with you my very first meeting with our former provost, Robin Wacker, who's a wonderful woman and a great mentor to me. She pulled me into her office my first week here on campus and said, "Leo, I've got this idea and I'm sharing it with the president, and I was wondering what you were thinking about it. It's going to be a building," and Robin is very famous for her wackergrams. They're kind of scrawly things. So there's going to be a building, and it's going to be circular, and it's going to have student services here, and it's going to have arts here, and it's going to be the front porch of the campus community here, and she was so excited about the building and the vision. And so I'm thrilled to see it finally realized this year after a lot of starts and stops and funding questions. It's a $74 million project. About 1/3 of it is funded by the state. That is huge, and we thank the state for its support. Approximately 1/3 or a little more is funded by student bonds, and a little less than 1/3 is funded by private donations and philanthropy. And so we'll open in spring 2019. And the building is meant, as I've mentioned, to be a natural gateway to our campus. If you think about our campus before Campus Commons, there's just 2 rectangles there. And there's nothing wrong with those 2 rectangles. But if you're a person who's trying to figure out where do you start your visit, your journey on this campus, it's really hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. Are you in the north part of campus? Are you on the south part of campus? All those anonymous buildings, where do you start, right? So one of the primary tenets of the building is that it will be a front porch, a natural gateway to welcome prospective students, current students, alumni, and community into the magic that happens at UNC. So we're very excited about that part. The third point that we propose to the state is that it be a center for the arts. And the reason why we propose that it be a center for the arts, besides us desperately needing good art space, is that arts bring people together, don't they? They'll bring people from the community to UNC that would never otherwise be on our campus. They'll bring people on our campus together in ways that they've never connected before. So it's really a building in its broadest visionary sense to create synergies both at UNC and with our community. And for those of you who have taken the tour recently, it's going to be a magical place. It's just going to be great. 600-seat tunable performance hall for music and theater performances. Does everybody understand what tunable performance hall means? Because that's a weird term. I'll stop and explain that. So it's not like tuning a guitar or tuning a violin. What you're tuning in a performance hall like that is the reverb sound, how much echo you get from a sound impulse. And so if you're playing with a full symphony orchestra, you want a fairly warm room that has a little bit of pop. So there are curtains that you move back and forth to literally tune the reverb, the slapback on the hall, so that it's ideal for orchestra. If it's highly amplified musical theater, you would pull all the curtains back because it's going to be louder than the typical string orchestra. And so you want a slightly damped hall for that kind of event. So that's what they mean by tunable. A new art gallery space that's eminently adaptable so that we can do complementary exhibits in the same space. So we can have a large gallery, some temporary partitions, and then perhaps a multimedia show that talks a little bit about, just like you talked about the mural, that explains the idea behind the image, that kind of thing. New rehearsal spaces, which means that Foundation Hall is going away for our music program, thank goodness. And integrated lobby and event spaces to support new models for arts events. So one of the things that the Design Oversight Committee worked very hard on is to make the availability and possibility of pop-up performances, which are all the rage these days. So pop-up performances are, you get a jazz combo and it starts over there, or you get a little theater something and it happens over in another corner, or you have an art and design exhibit, but it's not in a full gallery, it's just a couple of panels. And those might change every half hour or hour. And as an audience member, instead of sitting down for a 2.5-hour formal concert of Bach and Brahms, you can look at a schedule and say, oh, well, I want to see that, and then in a half an hour I want to see this, and I'll maybe have a cup of coffee in the cafe, and then I want to see that outside stage. We've got all of those spots built into the design. It's been painstakingly thought out. So save the date, get out your phones or get out your old-fashioned writing implements, or you'll probably get a bazillion emails from me. Join us for the Campus Commons Open House. It's April 12th. From 2 to 6 p.m. after Dr. Feinstein's investiture. So when a new president is welcomed formally to campus, that ceremony is called investiture, and that will be happening earlier in the day, and then the open house will be happening from 2 to 6. So I'm going to pause here. That's how we do it. Anybody have any questions on the how? I've silenced the crowd. Excellent. So as I've mentioned a couple of times previously, we do really walk a fine line between evolving curriculum and programming at our college to match broader trends about what's happening in the arts so that they're current, adding extracurricular program. So the ones we talked about were Day of Music, the mural was an extracurricular, Chocolat. A ton of our students were involved in the organization and engagement for that. Adding extracurricular programming and opportunities allows us the flexibility to evolve at the pace of the industry. We still have a duty to provide our students with historical reference points and time-honored academic traditions while encouraging exploration and innovation, and we talked a lot about how we're trying to do that as a college. So to summarize, to put it all together, into just a couple of bullet points, our goals as arts educators are to fully prepare our students to be leaders in the arts, to enrich our campus life with meaningful arts experiences, to embed the arts in our community, to expand our creative industries. We talked about our connections with CCI, and enhance our quality of life here in Greeley. And that concludes my presentation for you this afternoon. Those of you who know Monica Coverdale, my administrative assistant, she has a heart of gold, and she's got a very puckish sense of humor. She loves those origami birds. If you have any questions, I'm available on the UNCO website. I mean, questions as you're driving home. I will spend as much time as you would like with any further questions.